Hello and welcome to a very special ROKER Report Extra pod. I'm Brett Lyons-Davis, and now regular listeners to the Exiles pod will know that I'm normally joined by a panel of lads fans spread across the world, and we discuss the goings-on in Sunderland and speak to somebody to represent the weekend's opposition. And that's pretty much the case, for this pod. We do have Bomber chatting to Kaz May at the Bristol GasCast pod. And I am joined by a regular Exile panellist. That's Michael Dunn from Dublin. Michael, how are you?
All good, Brett. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you, mate. You ready for the start of the season?
Buzzing for it. Yeah, it's been too long now. Can't believe it's been 6 months nearly.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? So that first league game is literally days away. But as I said, this pod was a very special pod for my third panellist. I think the word legend is thrown around a lot, but when I say I'm joined by a genuine Sunderland legend, I don't think I'm overselling it. Now, they say don't meet your heroes, but I'm joined by a man who scored 130 goals in 235 appearances for Sunderland. He is still the only Englishman to win the European Golden Boot. It's only Super Kevin Phillips. How are you, Kev?
I'm good, thanks. It's always nice to hear that introduction. It never gets boring.
I bet it doesn't. I'll be honest, I had two options. I thought I would do that way, or I just introduce you as Kev from Stevenage.
Yeah, listen, I've been called everything over the years, so if you had of, I wouldn't be surprised.
But I must say, you're always guaranteed a good intro whenever you've got anything to do with Sunderland, mate. I say, fantastic to have you on board. Really looking forward to today's pod. I must start, though, because there is a bit of a... Well, if I don't, there'll be an elephant in the room. And he'll be an elephant with a big beard holding an energy drink can. William Story put on his Twitter yesterday a photo of yourself and him at St George's Park. Well, I'll be very blunt. What's the score with that, then?
Coincidence.
Purely coincidence. He's not. You're not a blue chip backer.
Coincidence. End of. Move on.
Perfect. We'll go straight on from there then. So, let's talk about Aston Villa last night. So we've started the season unbeaten. We had 2 cup games, 2 glorified pre-season friendlies. A 0-0 followed by a defeat on penalties to Hull, which was a decent performance, and then an 8-1 hammering of Villa under-21s yesterday, which it was really men versus boys, I think, at the end of the day. Kev, yourself, what your sort of thoughts on that? Does that set us up well for the start of the season?
Well, I think, yeah, of course it does. I was working Saturday, so I was watching the results come through, and of course I was actually working for Soccer Saturday, so I was listening to the show in my head, and Clinton Morrison was covering the game up at Sunderland, and they kept going to him saying how Sunderland are not winning the game, how they're not leading the chances they're creating, but they just couldn't find the back of the net. So, of course, when they lost on penalties, you kind of think it's not a great start to the season, is it? Having not been able to hit the back of the net, but then losing on penalties. But then they go and follow it up, of course, with a magnificent result last night. Although, it is men against boys, it'll be a great confidence booster for everyone concerned. Certainly the strikers. I think Danny Graham, of course, coming back to the club, getting off the mark as quickly as he did. O'Brien as well, who's a new signing. I think White got 2 as well. So good signs for the start of the season against Bristol Rovers at home on Saturday. So it can only be good news for Phil and obviously the squad. So a massive, huge confidence booster for them going into the game. No matter who you play, if you beat anyone 8-1, you've certainly played well on the night.
No, that's exactly it. Michael, I'll pass over to yourself as well. Obviously, what are your sort of initial thoughts going into the weekend's first league game of the season?
Echo what Kev was saying there, I suppose, about the strikers getting on the score sheet. Obviously, White got 2, O'Brien, Graham. I was sort of worried after last Saturday when Grigg got 2 disallowed goals and then misses the only penalty in the shootout. But by all accounts, he's come back sharp, fit, looking strong. So, it was definitely important for the strikers to get in the score sheet, because that's probably one of our biggest issues was last season, was that none of our strikers were scoring enough goals. White, I don't think, even got anywhere near double figures. I get the vibe, obviously knowing Aiden O'Brien from obviously playing for Ireland as well. He seems like a kind of a confidence player. So it might have been good, obviously very good for him to get an early goal going into the start of the season. So you'd hope, after scoring 8 goals yesterday, and also the likes of Scowen, who came on, got a goal, set up a couple, you'd like to think that the team are going in with a bit of form going into Saturday.
Obviously, I know we mentioned the strikers there. So looking at the game so far, so as you said, Grigg's he's got 2 disallowed Saturday and obviously missed a penalty. The other lads all got on the score sheets last night. Kev, if I come to you, I know one thing I wanted to sort of mention about was sort of like the confidence in strikers. I know you made comments the other day regarding Grigg not. Well, I think the actual headline itself was a little bit over exaggerated what your comments were. I know you sort of said you'd like Grigg to prove you wrong and get 20 goals. Do you think he's come back this season though, looking like he can do that more now, or are you still concerned about him?
I always like to give someone the benefit of the doubt. I know, when you come to Sunderland, what the huge pressure was. Come for big money. The pressure was on him to score goals. And I said at the beginning, I was excited about the signing because he was certainly a player when I was working at Derby and Stoke. He was on our radar, someone that was of interest of us. So when Sunderland signed him, I was really excited. But like every Sunderland supporter, I was very, very disappointed with the return. Certainly the goals return, but not just that. I just think his all-round general work rate and his all-round play just for me wasn't good enough. So, I give someone the benefit of the doubt in terms of the pressure was there. So I'll be very, very interested now, like you, from what I hear, that he's come back very sharp, which I would expect anyway, because I would expect him to want to come back with a mentality that he wants to prove people wrong. So I sincerely hope that he does. I hope he proves me wrong. And I certainly spent my career of having to prove people wrong, and I enjoyed doing that, and I lived up to that pressure, and I hope that Will does that. So maybe not having a crowd, certainly until October, might help him a little bit. But certainly, not getting off the mark on Saturday and then not getting on the score sheet last night, having been there, the pressure will start mounting. If he doesn't get a goal at the weekend, again, people will be talking about him. So I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he proves all the Sunderland supporters wrong. But, Danny Graham's off the mark straight away. So he'll be going into the weekend full of confidence. So I didn't see the headlines, what was written about, my comments. But I just hope that he proves me wrong and a lot of people wrong.
It was interesting you mentioned about the not having the crowd there. And I actually said the very similar thing the other day. I do think, cause he does seem to be one of those players that he needs to have confidence, he needs to have backing. But when, the Sunderland crowd aren't always the easiest, I'm sure you'll agree, if things aren't going right for you. How would you find yourself playing in front of no fans? Would you find that difficult?
I'd find it very difficult because I always like to play in front. I like to showcase, what I was all about. I would find it very, very difficult now to not play in front of anyone. I'd find it very hard, to be honest. But maybe it's just the era that I played in to get myself highly motivated to not be playing in front of fans. And that's my own personal opinion. But some players will thrive on that because the pressure's not there. I always wanted to perform in front of a crowd, and I certainly enjoyed that. So, that might just be, the stepping or the springboard that Will needs, to not have that crowd, maybe get a few goals before they start filtering back into the stadium. And if he does that, what the Sunderland crowd are like. They'll certainly get right back behind him. And if he continues to score goals and help the club hopefully get promotion, then he could turn out to be, I wouldn't say a legend for the club, but a hero, certainly a hero if he helps them get promoted.
No, and at the end of the day, that's what we all want. And, echoed what you said. I hope that he sort of proves everyone wrong this season and he can be the man to fire us the goals. I actually do think in a way it might help now that we've got more competition up front. You've got Aiden O'Brien and you've got Graham as well coming in who can, they've shown this week they can score goals. So I think that'll be definitely, a motivation, I think is probably the better word for him. What have you seen much of Aiden O'Brien? Are you impressed with that with him as a signing?
Do you know what? I have to be honest. I don't know a lot about him, but I obviously know the guys down at Millwall, Gary Rowett, who I worked with. I made a couple of phone calls and texts just to find out a bit more about the lad, and they spoke very, very highly of him. They said that he's got good movement. He certainly knows where the goal is, and for me, the most important thing was that they believed at that level, League One, he would score goals, no problem whatsoever. And you saw with the finish last night when he cut inside, just that little backlift. And he whips it into the far corner. That's a sign of a player who knows where the back of the net is. So, I like to think that it'll thrive in League One. It looks like, again, the pressure's off. That monkey's off your back when you get your first goal.
Yep.
And I'd like to see the kid go on a run now. He's young, he's enthusiastic. I know he's really excited about coming to a huge football club. I suppose he knows that, if you look down over the years, if you score goals for Sunderland and do well and help them get promotion, you can become a cult hero. So he certainly got off to a very good start.
One question I wanted to ask you about him, because I was actually asked the same question of one of the other lads, obviously being a Southerner myself. Now, one of the Millwall fans that we spoke to had slight concerns with him being like a London boy. Could he make the move up north, and will it be a bit of a culture shock for him? Yourself being from Stevenage, going to Sunderland, how did you actually find the move itself? Did you settle in the area okay?
Yeah, I would have to say, and you're right, I think that the northern people in general are so accommodating. You know, they're very, very passionate about their game. But I just think in general, you know, and I'm not having a go at southern people because I'm a southerner, but definitely southerners are a lot more ignorant than people in the northeast.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, to be fair.
I've lived in the south and I've lived down in Southampton. Yeah, the further north you go, they're so friendly. They'll make him feel welcome. But again, listen, at the end of the day, it's simple. If he goes there and scores goals, he'll become a hero. And wherever he goes, you know, people will want to talk to him and he'll settle in very quickly. And, you know, I always remember Glenn Roeder telling me when he was my manager at Watford, when I was going to Sunderland, he just gave me the best bit. Well, I wouldn't say it was the best bit of advice, but he gave me a bit of advice that stuck with me forever. He said, listen, Kev, he said, the North East is the best place to play football when things are going well. He said, but believe me, when things ain't going well, it's the worst place to play. So at the moment, it looks, you know, he's got off the mark and he can play that. He can play that wide role. I think he can play just in behind the striker as well, and I think he can play that striker role. So he can play in various positions. So at the moment, you know, it's looking good for him.
No, that's good. And I will keep while we're talking about the strikers, I will mention also then, so Danny Graham's come back to the club. Obviously, I know, I'll say we spoke this before, when, you know, you could have come back before you went to West Brom. Obviously, you had an amazing legacy that there's also a risk if you came back, you could damage your good legacy you've got, you know, even the high standings you've got with the Sunderland fans. Well, do you feel like Danny Graham's got a bit of a point to prove more than anything?
Yeah, definitely. And I think he knows that. He ain't daft. He's an experienced player. I actually think he'll do well. I think League One, I think he'll boss it. I watched him a fair bit last year for Blackburn. He still looks like he's got that hunger and desire. So, you know, at the end of the day, if he didn't want to come back and prove anything, he wouldn't have come to the club. He knows what the pressure's like up there. So, you know, I think he knows that he could stand out in League One. And given the service, you know, with the players that Sunderland have got in that league, I think he'll score goals. I think he'll get in the right areas. And again, you know, it'll do him the world of good getting off the mark last night. So I actually think it's a very shrewd signing from Phil Parkinson. And I certainly, you know, if we were sitting here 2-3 months down and I still talking, I think Danny Graham will be sitting on close to double figures.
That's good to hear. And for yourself, do you ever look back and wish or wonder if you'd made that decision to come back? Or are you pleased you didn't do it? Obviously, I know you say for family reasons, but do you ever wonder what if? Yeah,
there's always that what if, isn't there? But I think I made the right decision. My initial reaction when Quinny rang me and said, would you come back, was without even thinking about it, was yes. But when I had time to think about it, and you sit and you speak to your family and you speak to people that are close to you, it would have been very difficult for me to go back up there and emulate, you know, what I had achieved before. And I think you're better off just leaving that legacy as it was. You know, because if I'd have gone up, I always think back to when Robbie Fowler went back to Liverpool.
Yeah.
As much as he's a legend, it wasn't the same, was it, when he went back? And although he didn't tarnish his reputation, you know, I just didn't want to run the risk of that. So I think I made the right decision. But there's always that what if, isn't there? There's always that what. But I think generally I made the right decision.
I think that's more than fair enough, to be honest. I will get Michael back in because he sat there very patiently when we were chatting. One thing I wanted to bring up was that Max Power has now been named team captain with Bailey Wright as vice captain and Grant Ledbetter club captain. Michael, do you think Max is the right man for the job?
Yeah, well, I suppose when you think about it, I mean, who really were the options? You'd be looking at Max Power, Bailey Wright, and obviously the three lads that were actually kind of given the leadership roles, as well as Grant Ledbetter. But you'd assume that Grant is probably not going to play enough games to be the team captain as well. Bailey Wright, I would have probably gone for, but as well, Bailey Wright has had a good few injury issues over the last couple of seasons. So I think, yeah, on the main, Max Power, he seems to be a good choice. He's a natural leader. He seems to be very vocal on the pitch. He also seems to be very popular in the dressing room. I know you see these odd videos coming out here and there but he seems to have a bit of crack crack and the lads seem to get along with him. So, yeah, I think he's a good choice. I mean, he's been in this league a couple of seasons. He's with Sunderland a while now, so he knows the club, he knows what's needed, and he's got out of this league before. So you think in the main, Power is probably going to be the best choice because he'll probably play the most games as well.
Yeah, Kev, do you agree with that? Because the only other sort of options might have been Jordan Willis maybe taking the role, or Bailey Wright being captain himself. But do you agree with Max being there?
Do you know what? I have a thing about captains. For me, you could have anyone as captain. You know, for me, you should have it's an old saying, but you should have 11 captains out there. It's an armband's just an armband. I agree there with what Michael's saying in terms of he's got out the league. He looks like he's got a voice in the dressing room. It looks like he's going to play most of the games. But me personally, I probably would have liked to have seen either a Bailey Wright or a Jordan Willis, someone that can see the whole picture, everything that's in front of them, so that they can be talking to the players in front of them, got that bit more experience. So, but I haven't got an issue with that. For me, captain, anybody could be a captain for me. I expect everyone to lead by example. And I'm sure Max will do that. He'll take that on board. And, it's a responsibility that Phil, he's still a young... Phil wouldn't have given him the captaincy if he didn't believe that he could handle it. So, no, good luck to him. Good luck to him.
When you... I know saying that, you would like to see sort of 11 captains on the field. Would you say that you have, like, yourself and your experiences, would you say you've had someone who is, though, the ideal captain? Well, Sunderland or anywhere, really.
Well, you'd have to say, of course, Kevin Ball, wasn't he? He was a natural captain. He was a natural leader on and off the pitch, very focal. But at that time, we had players on the pitch that, it was an era where no one was afraid to say anything. Everyone spoke up. Everyone spoke their mind. I think everyone led by example on the pitch. So, but Kevin Ball, was that natural one, even to this day, when you meet him, you just know that Kevin Ball's around when he's in a room because he's got that presence. So, for me, he was the natural leader in our dressing room. But for me now, nowadays, I want to see, having been a coach in a few dressing rooms now, I see too often players just sitting there and accepting things and keeping quiet. I want to see people speak their mind and not be afraid to do that. And I'd like to think that the dressing room at Sunderland this season will be like that, because you can't have players in there thinking stuff and can't say it. They're too scared to say it, because that doesn't get you anywhere. So I'm hoping the dressing room this year will be a lot more vocal.
Do you think that sometimes, because there was the talk this week with Aiden O'Brien, but there was a radio interview where he basically wants another chance at Sunderland, and the quote was, whatever people think happened between me and the manager, I think it should remain a football decision. Now, there was an interview that Lewis Morgan did where I think it sounded like McGeady was berating other players who weren't up to his standard, and obviously he's an exceptional League One footballer. But on the same day that this was announced, Jamajli actually got his squad number. What do you think should happen to McGeady? Would you rather see him playing for Sunderland, or would you think, the time's done, cut all sort of cords with him?
Well, yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because you have to think as a manager what's best for the dressing room. What's going to keep the harmony, keep the team spirit right. And if you have someone there that's upsetting the apple cart week in and week out, then for me, you have to get rid of that. But, it seems like Aiden's saying the right things. I think ultimately, if you can get the best out of him as a player, well, he's the best player in that league when he's on form, isn't he? There's no player like him in the league. And, for me, I'd be desperately trying to get the best out of him week in and week out. If he wants to stay and he wants to play, but he has to do it in the right manner, fall in within those guidelines in the dressing room. He can't be, upsetting people. I think he has to accept now it's League One. Then, they're League One players. He might feel he's not a League One player, but you are. Been there now, a season, 2 seasons. Go and help these young players. Go and use your experience and help them get out of this league and show everyone, what a top player you are, because he certainly is that on his day. So I'd like to see him have a right go this season and lead by example on the pitch week in and week out.
Michael, as an Irishman, I suppose I better come back to you. And what will be your thoughts on Aiden McGeady coming back into the team?
I know I've been slagged before for my Irish bias towards McGeady over the last couple of seasons when I'm doing these podcasts, but I do think probably you'd love to see McGeady come in and make a difference and have an important role in the squad. But it just sort of seems like his time's up now. I like there's obviously rumours of whatever happened last season between him and other players, but as Kevin said, like on his day, he's a fantastic footballer, definitely the best in the league, but he has a bit of an attitude about himself, probably thinks he's better than some of the players in the squad. That probably frustrates him nearly in training and stuff. He probably expects higher standards, but I think there's maybe too much water under the bridge for McGeady to come back in. I can't see Parkinson bringing him back in either, because I think Parkinson is happy to move on without him. So I think maybe it will be in best interest for everyone if McGeady moves on, unfortunately, because you'd rather him stay and get us out of the league.
No, that's fair enough. And so, from my point of view on that, although I agree saying that with Kev that he's a phenomenal player, and my only concerns would be is where we said we're getting quite a good team spirit going for what you're seeing on like the social medias and stuff like that. So it is always a bit of a concern. Although he is an absolutely attacking wise, it's someone you really need. So it's a really difficult one. I think it may be best just to let him go personally, but then that does mean we need others to kind of like step up to the plate. And that kind of does sort of lead me on to my next question there, Kevin. We were speaking about the strikers earlier. Do you actually think that Sunderland as a team are attacking enough to help them? You've got the likes of Maguire, you've got Gooch, you've got Neil coming through, you've got a lot coming down the wings from Hume. Can we sort of help our strikers more? Because we weren't massive scorers last season.
No, I think of course you can. You can always. I only scored most of my goals because I had the supply. I wasn't the sort of a player like a Thierry Henry who could drop into your own half, turn around and take everyone on and score a goal. You're only as good as the chances that are created by your teammates. And you're right, at times last season, I thought Maguire and Gooch went through a spell, towards not too long before lockdown, where they were creating opportunities for the strikers. And unfortunately, the strikers weren't taking those chances. Whereas now, you'd like to think if those players can recreate that form, those wide boys, the offensive players, and create the chances for the likes of the Graham and the O'Briens, who are two new players who, will be dying, busting a gut to, of course, make an impact. You'd like to think that, things might be a little bit different. So, I want to see the form again from the Maguire, the Gooch, power breaking forward as well and getting the goal from midfield. So, I wouldn't say I'm really excited about it, but I'm very intrigued to see, the start of Sunderland. Certainly the first game, I expect them to, it won't be easy, but I expect them to get a result. And then I think the next 2 or 3 fixtures are fairly difficult. It'll be a big test for them. So I'm very intrigued to see how they start.
How would you go about, with going back to the strikers there, getting partnerships developed? Now, obviously, you say Kevin Phillips, you think of Niall Quinn, and it almost seemed like you hit it off instantly, the pair of you. But then obviously you had the likes of Danny Dicchio and Michael Bridges. How would you work to try and get them partnerships that aren't quite as strong going? Or not even as regular, I should say, as well?
Yeah, that's a question we always get asked, me and Quinny. From our situation, believe it or not, we never ever worked on it. It was just one of those that really put together and it worked. We spoke quite a lot, me and Quinny ourselves. The biggest bit of advice really only ever told me was never be any more than 10 yards away from Niall. Now, whether that's coming in front of him or running in behind, I don't think you can really say that anymore because, times have changed. But yeah, of course, just working on the training ground, and I'm sure Phil does that, he's an experienced manager. He'll look at the various partnerships. I personally, if you've got a Graham, a Grigg, you've got a White, you've got an O'Brien, I would always like to see, why would you not try and get 2 strikers on a football pitch, 2 players that can score goals? Certainly in League One, I think defensively, Sunderland look quite strong. I think this new lad who's come in, who I hear is very aggressive. I can't pronounce his name, but
well, I say Jamajli, and to be honest, I get a lot of our players' names wrong, so it could be anything.
But I'm hearing that he's very aggressive, very strong defensively. So whether Phil goes with a 3 at the back with Willis and Bailey, that to me, and then you got your wing backs. For me that looks pretty solid. So there's an opportunity maybe to try and get 2 strikers on the pitch. So, but it is in terms of partnerships working, you don't know until you actually put them together and just see. But of course, you need to work on it on the training ground and in training matches just to see and swap them about to see which two you think work the best.
So for Saturday, who would you start up front out of those four?
I would start Graham and O'Brien, me boys, who are hungry. Both got on the score sheet during the week. I think White's had his opportunity last year. I think at times was very disappointing. Of course, Grigg, as much as I'd like to see him get going, you've got to go with Graham and O'Brien, whether they go out as an out-and-out two or one plays, like I said, O'Brien can play as a number 10, just maybe in behind Graham. But yeah, I'd certainly go with the two new boys because I think they'll be desperate and hungry to succeed.
Michael, who are you going for up front?
I'd definitely go with O'Brien, and it's just two partners. I'd be inclined to just go with Grigg, hope that if he gets an early goal in the first couple of games with no fans there, gets a bit of confidence into him. You'd like to see him hit the ground running then for the rest of the season. But I see your Kevin's point as well. Graham's already on the score sheet. He's probably a level above this league. It's a toss between Graham and Grigg, but I'd be inclined just to go for Grigg in hope that if he get an early goal, he could have a good season.
And one thing I wanted to ask Kev then, so regarding yourself as a player, when you're sort of using your prime, do you think the game's changed? I know it was talking 15, 20 years ago from then. Has the game changed completely differently to now? I know you said you like to have two up front. Do you think you could work in a system where you had to be the lone striker? Could you sort of fit into that Sunderland team as a striker with Gooch and Maguire off you, or do you think that would not work?
No, it wouldn't work. I tried it, and they really tried me up front on my own a few times. I hated it. I'd always been brought up in a 4-4-2 system, always been used to having someone alongside me. So when you play with a strike partner for so long, you get used to making certain kinds of runs. You get used to, not making runs. You get used to one coming short, one going long. Whereas the lone striker, when I went up top, I have to say I was very, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know where I had to run in behind or come short. So, yeah, I would personally struggle now. But, these players now, when I watched a lot academy football, having lads in academy, and it's, it's almost a norm now, isn't it, to play with one up top and two inverted wingers, that like to come inside and play off a striker. And I think, the art of the 4-4-2 system is gradually going out, which for me, amazes me. Because, like I said, it's a system for me. Statistically, if you look at the teams that have been promoted out of the Championship over the last 10 years, I think most of them, if I'm correct in saying, have played 4-4-2. So the stats don't lie. But I understand that, teams why they do play that 4-3-3.
I think things become fashionable, don't they? You get like the Spain team of like the tick-attacker, and then you've got like Pep coming in and doing things at Man City. But like I say, that the Championship winning team for Sunderland, when it was sort of like you and Quinn up front with Summerby, Johnson on the wings, you had the likes of Clark in the middle with Alex Ray, or that just demolished teams.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are scared to buck the trend, aren't they? Because they're scared to get criticised, because it's almost like, it's old school. But why is it old school? It's just it's a system. Systems mean nothing in a way. It's finding the right players to fit. I think systems, you can get it wrong if you try and play a system like playing players out of position. If you go with a 4-4-2, you've got to play the right players in the right position. And for me, if it's old-fashioned, you play a right-footed player on the right-hand side, you play a left-footed player on the left-hand side, and you can go that way. But I also understand the 4-3-3 where you play the inverted wingers, a left footer on the right and a right left footer on the left, so they can come inside, play off a central striker, and then you get one of your advanced midfield players running on. So I get that. But yeah, so systems baffle me sometimes, but I think we as coaches or as managers make it more difficult than what it should be.
Yeah, I think that's it. At the end of the day, it's a very simple game.
Yeah, and it's the managers that make it more difficult.
Well, as I was watching the Villa game last night, it seemed to be young players like that at the back can't head the ball anymore. It just seems.
Yeah, they don't practice it no more, and it's when I was a coach at Stoke and Derby, we did a lot of unit work. So I would obviously take the strikers. You'd have a midfield coach, and then you'd have a defensive coach. And then when we'd come in afterwards and we'd analyse and sit and chat about it, defensive coach would come in and pulling his hair out, saying they don't want to head it anymore. It's just the old-fashioned looping balls into the box, go and attack it and head it away. He said they were just like they were moaning after 10 minutes because they had to head the football. And it's just, so the art of heading the ball, certainly defensively, is not what it used to be, 10, 15 years ago.
I think they're too afraid to mess the hair up. I think that's the problem.
Yeah. No hairdryers in their dressing room.
No, that's exactly it. Right, we'll just take a very short break for talking to Michael and Kev, to Bomber, who is talking to Kaz May at GasCast Pod, talking about this week's game.
Good evening, Bomber here for another preview game this Saturday. It is our opening game of the season against Bristol Rovers, and I'm delighted to be joined today a little bit further down the M5 than myself, Kaz from GasCast. How you doing, Kaz?
I'm good, thanks for having me on.
Good, yeah, it's good to have you, This is probably going to be one of the most West Country Sunderland chats that we'll have, me being from Gloucester, but we'll jump straight into it. So we're 6 months down the line from the last game of both of our seasons, which happened to be against each other. And as fate would have it, we're also the first game of this upcoming season. So I think that game was on the 10th of March, so we're pretty much bang on 6 months ago. That game, in my opinion, and I'm sure in the opinion of a number of fans, cost us the playoffs ultimately, as Sunderland went down 2-0 thanks to 2 goals from Clark Harris. That result put you 10 points clear of relegation. And I know the kind of lockdown and the suspension of the season happened not too long after that. But what was the feeling around the fan base after that game in terms of your push for League One safety? Do you feel you kind of halfway there or pretty much there, or was there still some concern for the rest of the season?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think we were ever worried about relegation. We were actually flying when we were under Graham Coughlin before he left us to go to Mansfield. So it was only when Ben Garner took over, and to be fair to him, it wasn't his squad. He's had to deal with a difficult situation of dealing with a load of players that he doesn't really know very well, and he has to try and change it to his system, and it kind of didn't click. So then we went on an awful run, just started sliding down the table, and it was this Sunderland game was sort of looked for us like the moment where it clicked for Ben Garner. Because it was the best that we'd seen all season performance-wise, even taking in Graham Coughlin's performances into account. And when he got us up to, I think the highest we were is second on Boxing Day. And even despite all of that, it was definitely the best performance we'd seen from the team all season. So it was more of a shame for us that it felt like he'd finally got it and it was working, and then coronavirus struck and then we couldn't play any more games. So I don't think anyone ever really feared relegation. I think we knew that we were probably going to finish mid-table. But yeah, the biggest thing for us was that we didn't get to see any more of that liquid football that came from that one game from Ben Garner.
Yeah, I think it was definitely one of Rovers' best games, and I think it was probably, if not one of the worst Sunderland performances, it's certainly one of the most frustrating, because we really saw that as an opportunity, and we'd only played you guys a few weeks before and had won 3-0. So I think a lot of Sunderland fans were going into that game thinking it was not necessarily going to be a formality, but certainly one that we would expect to win. And like I said, as it happened with the season finishing, us not getting anything from that game essentially cost us a playoff place. So I think it's something that Sunderland fans are going to be looking forward to on Saturday and hoping for, to exercise that ghost a little bit. But we mentioned there Clark Harris, and he was the difference between the two teams on the day. He scored one and then got a penalty, I think, if my memory serves me right. However, Sunderland fans might not be aware that he actually won't be lining up against us on Saturday. He's gone to Peterborough theoretically to replace Ivan Toney. So what was the fan reaction to that transfer, losing someone who appeared to be, so crucial for you last year?
The reaction was it was surprising really with the fan base, because we kind of expected it. We kind of expected it in January, to be honest, and I'm surprised that he actually had no offers in January. He was injured, which may have played a part in him not getting anything at all, but the fans were sort of happy enough to take, because the rumour is we took 1.25 million, which for us is a record fee. So from our point of view, we'd much rather him go now, because he would have been out of contract in a few months' time anyway, or towards the end of the season, and he would have gone for free. And really, if I'm honest, his attitude changed from the moment he realised he was one of the best strikers in the league. It was, how they get is, I'm too good for this now. Other teams want me, and he wanted to leave. He wanted to leave in January. So for us, if he's going to be a bad egg and he's going to be, throwing tantrums, and he doesn't fit in Ben Garner's style of play anyway. So for us, we thought, let Ben Garner get in someone who does fit his system, and hopefully we could get 2 players out this 1.25 mil, and it will work. I don't think Ben Garner really wanted him in the team anyway, so it's kind of like a nice mutual, feeling around the fan base.
Both parties in the end.
Yeah, we wish him luck, and there's no qualms about it from our end, and I hope he does well.
Yeah, well, I guess he can't be accused, even though he might have kind of kicked up a bit of a fuss. I guess you can't accuse him of downing tools, because he still, from that New Year period, still continued to score, didn't he? And probably ended up helping his move through to Peterborough once they did lose Tony. So you said, the hopes and aspirations were to get that 1.25 mil and, find a couple of suitable replacements. Have you gone about getting a replacement for him, or anyone who does come?
No.
In short, no.
I mean, let's give them time, but we haven't had anyone yet. It's a bit of a shame, because there's been a few players that have been available and gone elsewhere, like likes of Reece Healy from MK Dons. I thought he might have fit quite nicely, but he's gone elsewhere. Humphreys in Southend is another. He's handed in a transfer request, so hopefully he's another one we can look at. But I understand that it's not been that long, and maybe Ben Garner wants to find the right couple of players to fit his style of play and everything. So we haven't got anything yet, and I doubt we'll get it before Saturday. So no worries for you guys there.
Yeah, well, there's still quite a long way to go in the transfer window, so I'm sure something will crop up. And from what I gather from Ben Garner, from speaking to Max before and speaking to yourself before we started recording, he does have a very definitive style of play. So he's probably being very particular in terms of what he wants. Would that be fair to say? Yeah,
that's exactly it. He doesn't like a target man, from what I can see. So JCH just didn't fit what he wanted. He plays football on the floor, a lot of nice passing play, whereas Graham Coughlin before, our old manager, would hoof it upfield to JCH, and JCH just does what he does best. So he'll definitely be looking at players that will suit, almost walking it into the goal, because that seems to be what he wants to do at the moment.
Okay. So what are your striking options currently then?
So we've got Jonah Ayunga, who came from Havant and Waterlooville. He scored quite a lot of goals there, but he's still quite raw.
Right.
Watched him last night in the EFL Trophy, and he did get off the mark. I just think he's not got the confidence at the moment. He does mince around the ball for a bit too long. He's a bit hesitant. He missed a lot of one-on-ones in pre-season, so you can tell he's not quite ready yet, but with the right training, he can get there. And then we got James Daly, who was signed from Palace. He's yet to impress anyone at the moment, but Palace fans were gutted to lose him. So there must be something in him.
Another raw one then, potentially to develop.
Yeah, and then we've got Jaden Mitchell-Lawson, who can sort of play as a false nine as well, who we've got on loan for the season from Derby. Really highly rated player. Everyone's really excited to have him back, and hopefully he can sort of fill that void until we get a proper striker in.
Okay. Well, on the subject of transfers and people coming in, so one transfer that certainly Sunderland fans may be interested in will be you signing Jack Baldwin after his release from Sunderland. He probably didn't feature hardly at all for us last season before we kind of shipped him off to Salford. You've obviously signed him quite a few weeks ago now, but has he featured much for you at all in pre-season, and what are your initial thoughts of him?
He featured a little, not a lot. I mean, it's hard to say. It's too early for me to say whether he's going to come good or not. The Ipswich game, the Carabao Cup first game, he featured. He started, which I was surprised about. I wasn't expecting to see him in the starting 11. But Ben Garner played as a back three, and it didn't work well at all. And all three of them, not just Jack Baldwin, but all three of them had a really bad game. Right. And then interestingly, I don't know if you've ever seen this from him, but yesterday in the EFL Trophy, Garner played him in midfield, which was quite a surprise. Yeah, quite a surprise.
I mean, I stand to be corrected on that, but I don't think we ever played him in a midfield role. No, he was always one of 3 centre-backs, or there were a couple of times where we played 4 at the back and he was one of 2 centre-backs. We never pushed him further forward.
Ben Garner's just got plucked that out of nowhere, really.
Yeah.
Then it was a really strange decision. Surprised us, but didn't work. I mean,
No.
there was a lot of stray passes. He lost the ball quite a lot. So I'm going to give him a bit more of a chance, as I always do. But from what I can see, he's not really a standout performer as it stands. But
well, he was a bit of a strange one for us, because obviously we signed him and we were expecting big things from him. He became really, really highly rated, and his first couple of games we saw kind of glimpses of it, but then he just kind of became very, very error prone, and echo what you've just said. Really, he gave the ball away a lot. He made a few mistakes. That might be why Garner pushed him into midfield, because you can make those mistakes and not necessarily get punished as much for it as you would at centre back. I think I speak for all the Sunderland fans saying we want him to do well. He wasn't a bad character to have around. He had a lot of personal issues when he was at the club, which meant that he kind of withdrew from the squad altogether. And I don't think he played an awful lot for Salford either. So it's a move that we all hope he gets his career back on track. Maybe not so much Saturday, but after Saturday, we kind of wish him all the best, because the effort was there for us, but circumstances just conspired against him, I think. So with other transfers, then obviously you've had Jack Baldwin's come in. You mentioned a couple of others at strikers. Have there been any other significant incomings or outgoings that will mean that the starting lineup that we see on Saturday will be vastly different from the team we played in March?
yeah, so one of the biggest ones for us was Zane Westbrook from Coventry. He was very highly rated at Coventry. Obviously, they got promoted. And he's just a tidy little player in midfield. He's one of those players where you get excited about, and then in pre-season he doesn't really shine. So I'm hoping that we'll see a bit more of him once he plays sort of like a more competitive football. And Sam Nicholson as well, which we signed from Colorado Rapids, but he's also had a stint at Hearts. Those two are sort of quick, nippy little players that sort of cover a lot of ground. So those two, I would say, are probably the most exciting.
Are they both wide players?
Westbrook's centre mid, and Nicholson's a wide player.
Right.
Nicholson sort of can, from what I can see from doing research on his goals, that he could sort of ping it from anywhere. Mm-hmm. And then, Westbrook we sort of have in the heart of midfield. So those two, I would say, are the ones to look out for ahead of Saturday, because they're the ones that were probably our most exciting signings. And Aimer as well, actually, to be fair to him, he was the captain at Gillingham. Mm-hmm. He didn't have a great game on Saturday in the Carabao Cup, but he was the captain and he's highly rated, and he should be a strong, solid defender. So yeah, those three.
Yeah, well, I guess time will tell with that. So you mentioned about the Carabao Cup. So and obviously we've had the EFL Trophy as well. So officially the season's two games old, but with those 2 games, and it looks like you've had a pretty busy pre-season schedule with some more local friendlies. I see you played at Xtra and Cheltenham. So how has things gone on the pitch for you pre-season, and obviously the 2 games that we've already played?
So pre-season looked a lot more promising than the last 2 games,
right.
Which is really frustrating. You kind of
Yeah.
want it to be the other way around, don't you? So Ben Garner's obviously got this system and this formation, which is 3-4-3, which worked really well in pre-season. We had some great games against Cheltenham, Cardiff as well, and Cardiff had a strong lineup. They had likes of Kiefer Moore and Aidan Flint playing, so it was quite an impressive. We only lost 2-1, and that was sort of our B team, so it was quite impressive to watch. And like I said previously, with the football, Ben Garner's football and his style is very, very nice to watch. It's just missing 1 or 2 things, and at the moment it's just tidying up the defence. We're giving away far too many free headers at the moment, and then finding that replacement for JCH, that one person that is going to score goals, because like I said, Ayunga's a bit too raw. So yeah, it's good football and it's nicer to watch, but whether we can keep those clean sheets and score the goals, it's sort of just 2 little things. I think he's nearly there with it, but not quite yet.
That'll be the key thing, won't it, is replacing Clark Harris's goals. Yeah, and like I said, if you've got 2 raw strikers, they could be anything, I guess. So.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, with Nicholson and Jaden Mitchell-Lawson, they can ping it from anywhere and they can score some good goals, but we can't rely on our outfield players to be doing that. if that's not their role.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be nice to get someone in who's big, who's boisterous, got some experience. But yeah, thank God we've got to the end of October to do that, because I'd be seriously concerned, because it doesn't seem like there's anything in the pipeline at the moment.
Right, so there's nothing kind of imminent either then.
So, you know, when you sort of hear rumours, it's completely flat at the moment. So yeah, nothing as of yet. So like I said, I'm not confident we'll get anything before Saturday. But hopefully, yeah, in time we'll get a solid replacement for JCH.
So with that then, as things stand, and I guess it's difficult to say with there still being, you know, the best part of 2 months in the transfer window left, and you said you're crying out for a main striker. What are the fans' aspirations for this coming season as things stand?
So fans are always optimistic or the season starts, so you start making sign-ins. I mean, with this transfer window, I would say this is one of the best I've ever seen. It's a really, really impressive window, which obviously fans are going to get excited about. I've heard a few predictions. A lot of people are expecting at least in the top 10, with others expecting playoffs. So quite high aspirations, which have been shot down in these last 2 games. But yeah, I think with the money, with the new training ground, a new stadium on the horizon, there's nothing confirmed of that yet, but it's something that Rovers are looking to start doing, is to move and get into a new stadium. And our owner has splashed out on this new training ground and all this new equipment. So with all that taken into account, we are sort of expecting to start pushing this season. If not this season, then next season. But yeah, it obviously all depends on the team and the manager. With Ben Garner, he hasn't got any managerial experience apart from last season, where I think the record is 2 wins in 20 at the moment. So he's got a lot to prove himself as a manager. So it's down to him, but he has got a new team behind him. So we're hoping with all this that, at least top 10.
Well, I guess this is the first opportunity that he'll have to kind of make his stamp on a team, won't it? Because he joined kind of, was it midway through January or early January?
Midway through December.
Oh, December, yeah. So I guess he would have had a January transfer window, but wouldn't know kind of much about the squad at all in that time. So, okay. So looking forward to Saturday then. So what sort of Bristol Rovers side should we expect to be lined up against? I know you said that Garner likes a possession style of play to knock the ball around. So what can we expect to line up against?
So I would hope that he would have looked at the Ipswich game and not start 3 at the back. So I'm hoping that he may do 5 at the back this time, which is a bit more what he did last season. So normally I would say do 3-4-3, but taking into account that you just scored 8 Tuesday, I'd beg.
We're just as shocked at that as you are, believe me.
I beg of him to do 5 at the back. So yeah, we'll see with that what he does defensive wise. I would say you'd probably would start Aimer, Kilgore and Baldwin. If not Kilgore, maybe you'll start Harry's sort of in the middle back 3. And yeah, I think what you can expect is a bit more passing round, sort of trying to walk it into the goal, because we don't have JCH that can hit a ball and score out nowhere at the moment. And from what I've seen from the EFL Trophy and from the Carabao Cup, it is a lot of just passing around the pitch and just trying to get it to score into a tap in or whatever. And JML to play as a sort of false 9 role, to be there at the box to try and score those opportunities. So yeah, I would say less long ball, more passing play. And hopefully it works this time, but it's hard when you're up against big defenders and you know our players aren't quick enough or not sharp enough. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult because these last 2 games he should be making changes. Yeah. So I can tell you what he has done, but I'm hoping that he doesn't do that.
Because the last 2 results would suggest that something isn't quite right and something does need to change a little bit. But yeah, so what are you, on the flip side of that, and what are you expecting to come up against on Saturday? What sort of Sunderland side? Apparently now a rampant attacking, free scoring Sunderland team.
Yeah, well, like I say, like with the Saturday, obviously you drew 0-0, so I was thinking, maybe they might be a bit dry on the goal scoring front, and then I had a look last night and I thought maybe not. Yeah, I know you've just re-signed another striker as well in the past few days. So yeah, I'm a bit worried with him and Charlie White that maybe we do need to go 5 at the back. I would hope that we need to go full defensive, and the best that I think personally what we can hope for against you guys is a draw. Yeah. Because it's difficult with, like, I know it's no home fan advantage, but it's still travel and it's away from home. So yeah, I would, if I was Ben Garner, I'd go 5 at the back, try not to concede. Luckily, we've got Jacola back. He's been on international duty. He's our keeper, and he's been on international the past 2 games. And he's just a bit better command in the box. He's a better goalkeeper in general. So with him back, hopefully that'll make a difference as well. And yeah, just don't be too hard on us.
Yeah. Well, I before the Villa game, I would have said that I would be a little bit concerned about our goal threat at front. So when we did play Hull, even though it was a 0-0 draw, we could have won that game 5 or 6-0 if it weren't for better finishing, and we had a couple of goals disallowed. Obviously, since then, we have scored 8. It still sounds absolutely baffling to be able to actually say that. And all the strikers who got on the pitch for any period of time, like the person you just mentioned, Danny Graham, who we re-signed only a couple of days before. Charlie White got 2. Aiden O'Brien scored, and there was a couple through the midfield and defence as well. I think from a Sunderland point of view, I think we would probably go into that game quite confident. Not just because we're free scoring, but what we have been is we've been very, very good at the back as well. We've also changed formation. We've changed to a 3-5-2. And our 3 first choice centre back. We've got Bailey Wright, who was Bristol City's club captain. We've got Jordan Willis, who, in my opinion, was one of the best defenders in the league last season. And then we've also signed a guy whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce just yet, but we call him Arby. He's a Kosovan international. And yeah, those 3 should be pretty solid, particularly if you don't have a big target man and don't have a central focal point from a striking department. And our goal scorers are scoring goals at the minute. So, I think we would come in quite confident, and if we can force you to play 5 at the back without then yeah, I would probably fancy our chances a little bit. I'm sorry to say.
No, totally makes sense. And I was thinking the same thing. I think the best we can do is just defend, because Garner's style of trying to walk it into the goal isn't going to work if you've got solid defenders at the back that are just going to bully out. Because Sam Nicholson, Westbrook, they're quite small, they're quite skinny. Yeah. The only one that we've got who could be quite boisterous is our younger, but he's the one that's come from Havant and Waterlooville, and he's quite raw. So it's going to be quite, and he's got no confidence to shoot from anywhere. So yeah, I totally understand why you're confident.
Yeah. It would be typical Sunderland for me to say that and then make me my words and me look completely stupid, and it wouldn't be the first time, and probably end up coming away with nothing. So on that then, Kaz, one final thing from me is your prediction for Saturday. For Saturday's game. You can have your heart rule or your head rule. It's completely up to you. But what would you say as a prediction for Saturday?
My heart says 0-0. My head says we'll get another loss, and it'll be 2-0 loss. It's just one of those things, but it's a tough start to the season for us. We've had Ipswich, which has knocked our confidence, and then last night further knocked our confidence. No replacement for JCH. I just cannot see us scoring any goals. Hope I'm wrong. If we do, it'll be someone creating out of nothing. But yeah, I'm going to go with what my head says. I'm going to say 2-0 Sunderland win. Okay, well that matches my prediction. So I'll be a very happy person indeed if that comes true. Like I said, I think if we play our best back 3. I can see us restricting you to only a handful of chances. You've got to fancy us to score after scoring 8, but we will see. But Kaz, thank you very much for your time this evening. Saturday being the exception, I wish you all the very best for the season. Hope after Saturday's game you manage to get your main striker in and it can fire up to the top half. But for now, thank you very much. Thank you.
That was Bomber there talking to Kaz May at GasCast Pod. So still with Kevin and Michael. Lads, I'll go to you first, Michael, because I know Kevin's sort of hogging all the chat.
Imagine that.
So Saturday's game then, what's your score prediction against Bristol?
Bristol was the last game we played, wasn't it, before the lockdown? So
we were terrible.
We were shocking. Yeah. No, you'd like to think we get off to a good start. I mean, we seem to be creating a lot of chances. The fullbacks, O'Nien and was it Hume, we're getting forward well. O'Brien looked sharp. Even Grigg looked sharp. We were just talking about that earlier on. Yeah, you'd like to think first day of the season at home, you should be beating Bristol Rovers really if you want to challenge for automatic promotion. So I'd tentatively go for a 2-0 win with Will Grigg hopefully to score.
You're going 2-0. Kev, what's your thoughts for the game on Saturday?
Yeah, again, for me, it has to be a win to get off, get the season off to a flyer. So important that they get off to a good start. Of course, again, last night be a huge confidence booster for everyone concerned. So the players will be flying going into the game. But again, like Michael said, there might be that slight bit of doubt in the back of their mind, having beat, I think it was 3-0, wasn't it? Just before lockdown, losing down there. So, there might be that slight bit of hangover, but I don't see anything more than a Sunderland win. I'm actually going to go for a 3-0 Sunderland win. I fancy them to win quite comfortably at the weekend and get off to a flyer.
Fingers crossed you're right. And in regards to the season then, so obviously it's the first game this weekend. I will say it tentatively, who do you think is going to challenge Sunderland for promotion? Michael, what's your thoughts on who's going to be up there with us?
It's kind of hard to know. You usually look at the lads coming there from the Championship, but we obviously have the issues of Wigan and Hull have. So I'm not sure what Wigan's situation is. They seem to be all over the place. So they probably won't be anywhere near ready for challenging for promotion. Hull the same. I think Peterborough will be up there ourselves. If we get off to a good start, you'd like to think we'll be up there. I mean, the players we bought through the window there, O'Brien and Grigg and Graham and the likes, hopefully get the goals. Oxford, you think would be up there after their playoff as well. So it's kind of wide open. It's hard to know really, because even teams last season you think who wouldn't be involved in it, like Wickham, even go up. So I'd say it's quite a wide open.
No, that's good. And Kev?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I think it's going to be, again, another tough season. I think the start is very, very important. I think Fleetwood might have a chance of, being up there. Oxford, I think they'll be hurting, but I think they'll be thereabouts. Peterborough, it's hard to look any further than these teams. I think that, I agree with Michael, the two teams coming down, unfortunately, Hull, having to get rid of their best players. And Wigan, it seems like they could be moving ground as well. So you don't know how they're going to fare. But, I'd like to think that Sunderland, even maybe, it's a tough one. It's a real tough league, just like the Championship, having experienced that for many years. It's such a tough league to get out of. And, for me, ultimately, this season has to be the season that Sunderland get out of this league. And, again, if they can get off to a flyer, get the boys scoring, keeping clean sheets, then there's no reason, once the crowds start filtering in again, that can help them even more to raise the bar, and hopefully it can be a very successful season.
I think the key things to, like I say, like in the Championship, because they're so tight, where I think at one point last season there was like 3 points separated, sort of like second and eighth or something like that. It's momentum, isn't it? You need to get that momentum going, get the first couple of wins under, and then go from there.
Yeah, I think for me, would it be a disaster if they lost at the weekend? It wouldn't be far off it for me. Because again, the pressure's straight back on, isn't it? Everyone's talking about, how Sunderland missed out in the playoffs, whatever's going on in the background, and then, they don't win their first game. So, it'll be, I'm not going to call it a disaster, but it'll be not the perfect start, because I think the 2 or 3 games after that are quite difficult.
Yeah.
So Saturday for me is already, I wouldn't say a must-win game. Of course, you can't say that first game of the season, but just to get the momentum going, and like you rightly say, from my experience, you get the first win on the board, then you nick another one, and then all of a sudden, Sunderland on a roll, and everyone's looking at them and fearing them. That's what they need to be this season. They need to be feared, and I think at times last season, I went to quite a few of the games, and the teams that come, even Accrington came first half, played Sunderland off the park. So that can't happen this season if they're serious about promotion.
Do you think sometimes the stadium doesn't help us, where we are the cup final for every team? These lads who are playing Accrington and Stanley every week, kind of like Fleetwood, they come to the stadium like amazing stadium, great setup. Does that play against us?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I said that when they went down to League One. Some of these players will never get a chance to play in a stadium like that. And let's not forget, Sunderland was still pulling in 25 to 30,000. So, and I went to a fair few games where the atmosphere was brilliant. And, as an away player, I used to love going to the places like Old Trafford and, places like that, Chelsea, because, it's a massive arena to showcase what you're all about. And I think Sunderland certainly had to deal with that last year and at times didn't deal with it very well. So, yeah, I think it had gone against them. But I think this season now that they're used to League One, they've got to forget about that and they've got to make the place a fortress. They've got to make teams fear coming to the stadium, and just like we did when we were flying in the Championship and the first season, 2 seasons in the Premier League. You're kind of almost looking at the players in the tunnel, knowing that you've already, got half beaten them before they've even got on the pitch, and that's what needs to happen at the stadium like this season.
Well, you definitely did that when you guys were playing, because I remember as a fan, you expected to win. And as a Sunderland fan, you're not normally used to saying that. You're not expecting it every single game. But as I say, when you guys were in the Championship, we say, when you absolutely hammered that league and in the 2 7th spots, we were going to the stadium thinking, we're going to win this. And it's a great feeling.
Yeah, and it is. And I think that season in the Championship, I know for a fact because then players used to go in the bar afterwards and the away players used to come in and quite often the away players would come in and openly admit saying, we felt we were going to get nothing here today. We just were hoping we were going to get something. So, to hear that from an opposition player, that means that they feared coming to the stadium because we were flying. Now, I would love to see that back again at the stadium this year. And that's what Phil and his team, should aim and strive to look to be doing.
Do you think, Kev, though, without fans there, that'll be an advantage for Sunderland or for the opposition more so?
I think it's a level playing field. I really do at the moment because, I think when we reconvened after COVID, when we was allowed back playing, I just feel it's a level playing field. Of course, the Sunderland players know the dressing room, they know, the route to the ground, they know the stadium inside out. But once that whistle goes, it's just the pitch is exactly the same size. So there's no influence from the crowd. So, then it's over to the players, to go and perform and take the onus upon themselves, take the game by the scruff of the neck. And, you're hoping now that Sunderland, having got used to the league, they'll forget about everything around, although there's obviously no crowd there. They can just solely concentrate on putting in performances like they did last night against, albeit a young Villa side. But, all they need to do now is just concentrate on playing well. They don't need to worry about what's going on around them until at least October.
That's great. Well, that's us done. Kevin, what an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Cheers, guys.
Thanks for listening to the ROKER Report Extra Pod. If you haven't subscribed, please do so at your usual podcast points. Thanks for listening.